30th meeting of the school committee to order. We do have one member remote this evening, so we will do everything by roll call. So we'll first call attendance. I'll start with Tom remotely.
Here.
Laura?
Here.
Carla?
Here.
Sarah?
Here.
And Sean is here. Okay, let me run through our agenda this evening and then we will jump right in. We'll start with public comment for anything that's not on the agenda. We have, I think, two things we're featuring for Focus on Excellence this evening. We have probably the lengthiest consent agenda I've seen in 5+ years, which is a lot of good news, so that's exciting. We will go to reports. In the new business section, we're going to have a presentation on their school improvement plans and vote to accept those. We'll have our Q1 financial update for the fiscal year of 26. We'll have a brief discussion about school committee budget priorities for the next budget season. An FY26 enrollment update, and then a reading and potentially vote to adopt policy IKFE will round us out. So with that, we will start with public comment for anything that is not on the agenda. If anybody here in the audience wants to take 3 minutes of fame, now's your chance. All right. Let's move then to our Focus on Excellence, and I will kick it to you, Dr. Milczewski.
Great. All right. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. The first group we would like to welcome tonight is we have several members of our RMHS marching band here tonight to speak a little bit about sort of how the season's gone thus far and what's ahead. Also coming off the heels of a victory last weekend, hosting 18 marching bands from across the state in competition, won first place in their division with a gold medal. Also, to put a plug in, this weekend up at Lawrence High School, we'll be competing for the NESBA state championship as well. So we'd love to invite up some members of the band. I see Mr. Mulligan here as well, to come on up to the microphone and to share some of your work with the community, so everyone can hear some of the great things happening.
Hi, we are 4 representatives of the Reading Memorial High School Marching Band. My name is Brian Fernandez. I am the president of the bands.
I'm Avery Black. I'm the drum major.
I'm Ariana Scott. I am the symphonic band representative and color guard co-captain.
And I'm Alexandra Spagnolo, and I am the captain of the color guard.
So this year we've been working on our show Metropolis, and as he said, we won our second to last competition last Saturday, which was very exciting, which we hosted. This Sunday, we're going to be having our finals at the Lawrence Memorial Stadium in Lawrence. The band is going on at 1:25 if anyone would like to come. And we would like to thank the BPL because they've organized so much for us, including our home show last Saturday, which we've held over 25 years. And then later on this year, we're going to be going to Disney on December 11th to 15th, and we're going to be marching down Main Street, USA on Saturday, December 13th at 5:25.
For Winter Guard, which is starting up soon, we're really excited about that. We have a new competitive season, which we haven't had last year, so we're really excited to start that off with new staff as well. We also have new students who are excited, and our season runs from November to April.
Also starting up in winter is going to be our indoor percussion group, R&R. We combine with North Reading and Reading, and we put together essentially a marching band without the winds. We're looking to grab another NESBA championship win this year. There was a noticeable 10-point difference between last year's finals and the year before that, so we have been making considerable progress. And our season runs from December to April.
The symphonic band is getting ready for our winter concert on December 9th. Many groups perform at the concert, including the jazz combo, the stage band, the jazz band, the marching, and the symphonic band. Our concert starts at 7.
Our competitive season is over, but we still have plenty of events left this year. In November, we have our Haverhill Parade on Sunday, November the 23rd. We have our alumni night on the 26th. We have our Thanksgiving Day game the day after on the 27th. We have our Reading tree lighting ceremony on the 30th. And in December, we have our Festival of Trees, where we're going to see performances from the jazz band and the Guard. And we have our big winter concert on the 9th, and we leave for Disney on the 11th. Thank you all so much, the entirety of the community, for all of the support that you give us.
A couple of things I just want to share, follow up first. Having you up here, as you know, some people may be watching at home and they just may not hear a lot about what's happening in the band, so it's nice just to spread the word of some of the amazing work happening. I want to say thank you for a couple things. First, Mr. Mulligan's in the back of the room. I cannot think of many other leaders with his level of humility, yet performs at a high level consistently. He's absolutely incredible, and he has built what is widely regarded and known as one of the best programs across the state. So I'd just like to thank Joe, who probably does not like to receive the recognition, is constantly giving it back to the students. But it is incredible, truly, what Joe has built and sustained over the years. So I just want to make sure everyone sees Joe, knows Joe, and appreciates what he does. And for our students, a couple of thank yous. One, people may not know if, just the level of preparation and time commitment that you put in is second to none. If you drive around campus anytime, the summer, late at night, the band is always practicing, always performing, and always in holding themselves to a really high bar. So just that level of preparation is incredible. Two, the tradition and the culture of excellence. This section is called Focus on Excellence. This is a marching band that had back-to-back state champions. Find me any other program that has done that, but just a program that consistently holds themselves to a really high bar is incredible. Third, the thing maybe I appreciate most is, for those who follow marching band too, know that everyone contributes and everyone's a part of it. There's no hiding. Everyone has to be a part of the program, part of the team, and your participation matters and is part of the score. So not only is everyone feel like they're a part, but the way that students in the program feel connected to the band, they feel like they're a part of a program, feel like they're part of something bigger than them, feel like they're seen, feel like they have friendships, feel they're valued, is just a testament to the leadership at the top, but also for all of you for fostering that culture of student leaders. So I'd just like to give each of you a huge thank you for what you do for our community, and we're all really impressed. We're cheering you on and hopeful for a really successful performance on Saturday and Sunday, correct?
Yes. Or Sunday.
Sunday, just Sunday.
Yeah, I just want to add, Dr. Milichewski talked about, tradition and a culture of excellence. My 7th grade daughter and a bunch of her friends from the Coolidge Band went to the competition last week and came home way more jazzed up about band than they ever were. So congratulations not only on your success, but on inspiring the next generation of the RMHS Band as well. So thank you.
Sean, and one other thank you. We see a couple of parents here. Just like, as you know, the band has it's hard to probably quantify the amount of parents who are involved some way helping out behind the scenes. So it's a huge thank you to all the parent volunteers who make the program run as well.
Great. Anyone else? All right, we do, speaking of traditions, we do have one more tradition. We have to embarrass you a little bit and ask you to join us at the front here and take a photo with us before we let you go this evening.
Joe, I think you have to come up too. Sorry. Joe, thanks for coming.
They have paper tech right now, so I might be running late.
Yeah, and we can fit them back in if they come.
We can also, I can give a little grab
We do have a second Focus on Excellence who is in rehearsal right now. That's for our Catch Me If You Can production upcoming here at the high school. So they may sneak in at some point tonight, which I hope we can pause the meeting and give them the floor when they come in.
I'm sure we can figure out how to do that. It
Great.
shouldn't be a problem. All right, let's move to the consent agenda. Just one word on the consent agenda before I take a motion. One of our members, Tom Wise, actually made one of the donations this evening. So we're going to pull item 19 out of the consent agenda, vote on that, and then we'll vote on 19 separately. So Carla, if we could take a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda minus item 19.
Is there a second?
Second.
So Tom is going to recuse himself from this one. No, sorry, Tom is going to vote on this one. So let's go to the roll call vote, and I will start with Tom.
As long as she said minus 19, yes.
She did say minus 19, thank you. Laura?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Sean, yes. All right, and then let's take a motion on number 19.
And move to approve item 19, the structured literacy playbook, book donation from the consent agenda.
And is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Sarah. And Laura?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Sean, yes, that passes 4-0. And I will just say, this is a great example of a school committee member literally putting his money where his mouth is and making a donation to support early literacy. So thank you, Tom, very much for that. All right, let's move to reports, and I'll start with, do we have a report from Dr. Hardy this evening?
Just something quick.
Let's start with
Just
Dr. Hardy.
Just
Yep.
some good news to share. Hi, everyone. So earlier this month, we had the incredible opportunity to welcome David and Meredith Lieben to Killam Elementary School to see our literacy program ARC Core in action. If you're not familiar with David and Meredith, they are nationally recognized educational researchers, and they were folks that wrote some of the books that were sort of foundational in some of like how we look at literacy now. In particular, they've been part of the Knowledge Matters campaign, which, as you may remember, is an important part of our ARC Core program. So in their time at Killam, they visited lots of different classrooms across grade levels. They had the opportunity to see foundational skills lessons, whole class reading lessons, and even some writing lessons. And in the debrief after, they just were expressed how impressed they were with what they saw in our classrooms, not just the skill level of our teachers in implementing ARC, but really what they said is they saw joy and engagement and confidence in our students as readers and writers. So that was really exciting. One comment that David made that really stood out for us was he said, everyone here is breathing life into ARC. And that's really what we want to hear. That's the best compliment we can get. Yes, we want to implement the curriculum well, but we want to do it in a way that really shows collaboration and a commitment to the type of literacy programming that we want for our students. So the visit was great. It was also an exciting moment just to sort of show off our Killam staff and students and how proud we are of all of the work that's happening.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Dr. Milichewski.
Great. I have two updates. Sean alluded to the heavy consent agenda tonight, so I just wanted to loop back and make a comment on that as well. So you'll see in the consent agenda, there's many donation items and many grants as well. I want to make a couple quick comments on those. First, we know that around the community, there's been a lot of conversation around tightening budgets. We know, as following up on the recent FinCom meeting, which there's been a push for local leaders to try to pursue any creative sources of funding sort of in any way we can. One thing that we're really encouraged to share is that our district continues to explore all possible grant opportunities as a way to support and supplement the great work happening in our district. As an example, in this consent agenda, you'll see over $325,000 of state funding that was awarded to us over the last 2 weeks. That comes to us from funding for innovation pathways, funding for capital needs, funding for other educational programming, but just want the community to know that we are going to keep exploring every grant opportunity that we can at the state level, and also this is done by the work of many of the leaders in this room, many of our other leaders. We do not have a grant writer. It's just our team internally putting all this together. So that $300,000+ in just in the last couple of weeks is a testament to our work to creatively supplement the budget in any way we can. On that same note, in the consent agenda, you'll see many items that were donations from the community. I think one of the things that makes this community so special is that this is a community that invests in our public schools in so many different ways. looking down that list, just a huge thank you to all of our community partners who, provide all different types of support, including financial support to our district to build on some of the great programming happening. So I would just like to thank all the many community partners who support the work in our district. So that's a quick update on the consent agenda budget items. Two, we know there's been a lot of conversation both locally and nationally around the expiration of SNAP benefits. Wanted to make a couple of comments in relation to our district. First of all, this is something that deeply impacts so many of our students and families. Our food service department is thinking really creatively about what this means and how we can support our students and families. This does not impact our breakfast or lunch program, but we know that that in itself is not sufficient. So our Catherine Franzetti is working closely with many of our principals, our nursing team, our counselors to think creatively of what we can do to provide, make sure families individually have what they need over the next couple of weeks or months. There are some limitations on what we can do with cooked foods, but we are obviously trying to do everything we can with it safely to provide for families. Two, I give Catherine a ton of credit to about working really closely with town leadership over the last couple of weeks to make sure that there's also support outside of the schools for families in our own community as well. Therefore, we feel right now the Reading Food Pantry is well positioned to support the needs of our community. There is more information coming out from our district and from the town tomorrow that will share times where families are able to come by to pick up food. Also, if anyone in the community wants to help, the Reading Food Pantry has made it, has asked for people to support either by a financial donation to the Reading Food Pantry or gift cards to local supermarkets where people can purchase foods as well. There's just certain foods they feel like they already have enough of, so donating foods may not be as helpful as gift cards or also also cash donations as well. So I really appreciate how this community is rallying around our students and our families. If anyone has any questions around direct needs or on ways to support, please reach out to me or anyone on our team, and we're eager to continue that conversation.
Can I add to that? Don't forget about St. Vincent de Paul's.
Yep.
Because they also service anybody who lives in Reading as well.
Great point.
Great. All right, let's go to liaison reports, and Tom, I will start with you.
Sure, we'll start with the Finance Committee vote that they just did on their meeting on the 15th. They did vote to do the 3% operating budget increase for next year, which was what we in the town had asked them to do, so that met our expectations. One kind of caveat or concern, I think, is that they also reported out that to maintain our AAA rating, we need to maintain 15% cash reserves instead of 7%, which is the current policy, or 10%, which we previously thought. 15% of our cash reserves, we're currently, we will be after this next budget at 14.8%. So after the 27, if everything holds, unless we have a bigger turnback, we'll be at the point where we're below the 15% and thus be at risk of our AAA rating being downgraded. So that's one key note of awareness there. In addition, moving on from Finance Committee, on the Select Board, I do have agreement from both chairs of the Select Board that they will be taking up the CPAC recognition petition on their meeting next Tuesday, 11/4. So that's my update.
Thanks, Tom. Laura?
I went to the rec committee meeting on Monday night, and I can report back that the painting of the Wood End playground has been completed. They were making some adjustments to accommodate a visually impaired student, and that is done. There was also some updates, on the Birch Meadow Phase 2 project, and I would say there is a strong possibility at this point that the completion of the playground there may get delayed until early spring as a result of delays in equipment delivery and possible weather conditions changing now. So not for sure yet, but possibly. That's it.
Thank you. Carla?
I will give a quick update on Killam, and I want to point out our principal, Lindsay, who is a rock star on top of everything else she does. The time commitment for Killam is crazy, and it's a lot of juggling and she's making decisions that have to be made. So we appreciate you very much. So we had a KSBC meeting on October 14th. On Monday night, I manned a table at the Connected Reading, at the Reading Public Library, which was interesting, in a good way. I figured, rather than give an update, I'll just highlight some of the meetings we've had over the past couple of weeks. Design status meetings we had a meeting with the MSBA to talk about where we're at with the design. And they always let us know what our next steps are and things like that. We just make sure we're on the same page with dates and stuff. We've had meetings for the temporary playground, for technology and IT, the interior design, including the design in the RISE space. And we've started discussions on furnitures and fixtures, which is so important. Access control and door hardware. And today we had a tree meeting. So we talked about removal and preserving trees, which actually was very interesting. You can tell how bored we are, but we're getting a lot done. The meetings they just constantly pop up in your calendar. So, but it's going really, really well.
Thank you. Sarah?
RCTV board met Tuesday, nothing school-related, so I won't drag us out with that. Another shout-out in lieu of Drama Club being here, 2 weekends in a row with Catch Me If You Can musical. Performances Friday, Saturday, Sunday, November 7th, 8th, 9th, 14th, 15th, 16th. Really fun. Come check it out.
And Tom stole both of my planned reports, so we are good as far as that goes. All right, let's move to the new business section, and we'll go to the school improvement plans. So Dr. Milczewski, Dr. Hardy, I'll hand it to you to kick
Great.
us off and get us started.
Sounds good. Looks like we're locked out. Do you have the timed out? Chris, can we phone a friend?
with Chris,
Yeah. We got timed out.
You want me to share it?
Sure.
Is it the same one from the?
No, there's a PowerPoint on this that'll probably render better, Tom. Just bear with us 2 seconds.
That time out.
Thank you.
Sorry. Share. Here we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. Excited tonight to dive into our school improvement plans for 25-26. Obviously, we're joined by all of our school leaders, which you'll be hearing from them momentarily. Just a couple of points of framing before we dive into the content. One, this is meant to be a very high-level overview of our school improvement plans. Obviously, across 8 sites, we could be talking all night about the amazing things happening at each school. Tonight is just a very high-level overview of, one, what are some of the commonalities by level, and then 2, what are some of the things, some of the improvement efforts that may be unique in each school community. If you are eager to learn more about what's happened in each specific school, there's also each school improvement plan is listed in the packet, and there's also on the last slide of the presentation the date, time, and also in many cases a Zoom link for which each of our leaders will be presenting within their respective school communities. I think everyone in the community is probably pretty familiar with the point of a SIP at this point. I think something I want to flag before our leaders dive in is that this is not meant to be an exhaustive list of every initiative happening in their building. This is meant to be some of the things that they have identified as the most strategic, highest priority items in their school community. By you not seeing something in the SIP does not mean that that's not something that is happening in that school, just to flag as well. Also, something that we really appreciate consistently as a district is our partnership with families. As we know, one of the requirements of the work of the school council is the school council, comprised of principal, parents, teachers, community members, obviously their role in approving SIPs, which is really important as well. So the work that you're seeing tonight is not only, is not just from one leader, but it also reflects the collaboration of many people in each respective school community. So with that, we will dive in. We're going to kick it right off, jumping into our elementary level.
Probably one of the tables would probably be best.
Is this all right?
Yeah, either one.
The best view. And which mic? Both. Are we good? Oh, both mic. Okay. So my name is Alyssa Gallegos. I'm the principal at Barrows Elementary School, and I'm going to speak a little bit about some of the 4 commonalities that we're all going to be working on. We meet monthly at our district leadership teams, and as well as our learning and teaching meetings led by Dr. Hardy. And so with that, we're able to bring a lot of our data and talking about what's happening at all of our schools. So as we were writing our school improvement plans and then we kind of laid them out together, we realized there were definitely some major areas that we're all working on, in addition to our kind of niche things that we're doing. So our first one is improving student achievement and academic growth by deepening the use of data, teams, and assessment analysis to elevate our Tier 1 instruction and working at targeting supports for specific profiles of students and students. We're also starting to work with EduClimber to leverage using data to do that work. So we've already been through a couple of trainings and fiddling around with it and seeing how that we can take all that data that we're pretty familiar with, but pooling it into one place. So that's been really nice. We just had a training again this week. We're also implementing the comprehensive math assessment we're referring to as the CMAs in grades 2 through 5, and we're using results to strengthen our math instruction using data-driven instruction practices. We're also working on literacy, of course. That's always one of our top ones, along with math. And so with that, we're continuing the work with literacy labs under the direction of Erin Birchall. This year, though, what looks a little bit different is that we have a representative from every grade at every single school coming together to continue this work. And they really are able to voice that, put into practices with professional development that they've been working on through Hill and things like that to really make sure that when they go back to each school, they're working with their teams to kind of move things forward. So we're all really unified there. And then our other one is strengthening staff understanding to use strategies that promote student connection and belonging through continual PD practices that we're doing with our inclusion specialists. So we have more inclusion specialists supporting all the schools and kind of being the leaders of best practices and how to kind of coach our staff to be able to do what's best for all of our students in an inclusion model. So those are the big ones for all of us. Any questions? No? Okay. Oh, and then
Go for it.
I'm next. I'm alphabetical order. Okay, so from Alice on Barrows. So we've kind of broken it down in some focus areas. So for us at Barrows, for increasing individual student growth percentiles, so looking at our MCAS scores, looking at our DIBELs, and now we'll be looking at the CMAs as well. How are we going to make student growth individually with each student? That, we're not just concerned about the score, but that the growth they're making. And one of the things that we're piloting this year for our school is we're doing instructional rounds. We started this work with our instructional leadership team where we ended up training all of our staff to do this, but how to go in and do low inference notes of just what do you see, what can you see, what do you hear, what do you count when you go into a classroom. And then we've used our instructional leadership team meetings, and then we also did this full on with our staff, and then we used our in-service day to go through protocols to take all of what we see in a really objective way to start to see trends in our school, really a lot of strengths, but also areas where we want to grow. We're going to continue this cycle throughout the year where we're refining what we're looking at, and then from there, that'll help us develop even more professional development to grow areas to then help our students continue to have academic and social emotional success. We also had for our positive behavior supports, we had kind of a reboot. Things can kind of get a little stagnant. So our ILT and we have assembly leaders now really put a new kind of burst of energy in. We updated our Barrows beliefs with our core values. We're focused more on even more so student-led assemblies and just different areas there that you can see in the bullet. But that's where we're really working on there to help support students feel good and embed that with our second step and our social emotional learning that we're doing. And lastly, I worked closely with our MECO coordinator, trying to make sure that we were bridging any kind of gap geographically with our families that are in Boston. And so we offered 2 Zoom meetings, kind of like a back to school, but also the kind of the nuances and unique maybe challenges or things that we would want our families to know that live in Boston. So we offered a daytime Zoom and an afternoon Zoom or evening Zoom, and we asked what would be better. We offered both, and we went through all of that. And then our intention is to do that again mid-year and then at the end. So we're getting feedback and also being able to make sure that they know and feel a part of our community. So that's it for Barrows.
I think I'm next. Is that the alphabet?
That is,
First
yes.
row?
We're good at elementary school. We're awesome.
This mic? Well, good evening. I'm excited to give the highlights for Birch Meadow Elementary School on our SIP. And the first one that you're going to see is that we are putting an emphasis on early literacy at Birch Meadow. We've had, over the past couple of years, really strong student growth outcomes as students have moved from grade 3 through grade 5. But we really believe that if we can raise up the starting point, that we're going to see the finish line even higher. So though the growth has been impressive, we're really excited about that, but we want to focus on early literacy. So you're going to see that throughout the school improvement plan. We've also been very successful at reducing our chronic absenteeism. Over the past year, we were able to bring that down multiple percentage points. That's very hard to do at elementary school because when you're 8 or 9 years old, it's not up to you if you get to school. So that's a lot of partnership with families. We've been successful at that. We think we can keep moving that in the right direction and get even more students to school. We have a really dedicated attendance team that's doing that work. One of the new things that we're doing this year is we're going to sit down at our collaborative planning time with teams and present them with monthly reports so that grade level teams can partner with us more directly around increasing student attendance, and we think we're going to see dividends with that. We also are really excited to be seeing the growth in our Embark program. That's our substantially separate program that is at Birch Meadow Elementary School. One of the things that I am really excited about is that we've been able to work with our paraprofessionals to change and improve their schedules a little bit so that we have them more available to meet and plan for students every day. They're such a pivotal part about what we do that I want to make sure I give a shout out to just a couple of people in this presentation. So Megan Morris, Julie Spinuzzi, Kimberly Manahan, Kayla Donovan, Adriana Roberts, Elizabeth Littlehale, Susie Cusis, and Jackie Wilson. Those are the paraprofessionals in our Embark program. Those frontline staff make such a difference to the lives of kids every single day, and we're so excited to have them more available to meet with us and plan with us. So those are some of the things on Birch Meadows SIP. Excited to share them with you.
Thank you. Good evening, all. Good to see you. Great to be here. Just to share a little bit about the things that we're working through at Joshua Eaton. It's been nice to kind of partner as an elementary team to work on so many of those core areas together, which is nice. So a lot of what you'll see just kind of stems off of what you saw in the commonalities as well. One thing that we're excited to really work through and delve deeper into is our writing. In the past 4 years that I've been here, we've focused so much on reading and math, and we've found that writing is sort of our next area that we're looking to focus more on. So we're spending our collaborative planning time on Wednesdays working with each grade level to look at our pre and our post assessments for ARC. To really just see where our students at, what do they need to get to that next level and push them further. So we're excited to focus on writing, not just in our data meetings, but also through our instructional rounds and our peer walkthroughs that we do with our staff, similar to what Alyssa shared at Barrows as well. And we've been excited to kind of pilot sort of a tiered intervention for math. So in the past, our teachers have really worked through all of those interventions within our WIN block, and we've looked to see like where can our larger staff support and our tutors to be more strategic with that math particular area as well. So that's instruction at JE and just some of the things that we're excited about. Secondly, we're looking forward to rolling out that social emotional learning block. It's been really nice to see how JE has responded to that and just the excitement that has been built. One kind of unique thing we're trying is pre and a post assessment. Our teacher leaders felt like it would be really great to see how our students kind of rate themselves on these social emotional skills before and after each unit. So that's something that we're piloting this year, just to help our students know, like, this is why we're learning this is why we're in SEL. We want to feel that growth within ourselves and help you along that way. And then lastly, PBIS, this is always a fun one. Our school council was really excited about just thinking through ways that we can differentiate our sort of incentives for our fifth graders. We're always thinking about that fifth grade, like how can we kind of level them up and get them super bought into our PBIS. So instead of just, shopping at our school store, we're looking forward to not only making them leaders of our school store, which I know we have some children that have been taking the lead there and doing a great job, but thinking about ways that fifth graders can earn more leadership within our school community. So that's some of the work we'll do this year. And then lastly, just a fun one, we got some monitors in our school that were just shouting out kids left and right. So students walk in the hallway and they see, their name and what they did to show our core values. So just another way to teach students like what it is we're looking for to really show those core values. So excited about those 3 areas.
Good evening. So for Killam, I was really impressed with the achievement and growth that our whole community made this year, but we're going to be focusing on making sure we have equitable outcomes for our multilingual learners and our students on IEPs. One of the ways we're doing that is really thinking about the professional development for our B grades, so our inclusion services, and collaborating with special ed and general ed and finding the time and opportunities to make sure that students are reaching their IEP goals in the classroom, how we can bridge that gap a little bit more. We're also trying to tie special ed and our ML teacher into data team cycles more frequently to really bridge those achievement gaps. The second piece is I sent out a family survey asking how the school year went and what feedback they could give us as a community, asking things from about administration, about communication, about things that they would like to see improved. And the biggest piece of feedback we received was they want to know more about our students' progress as we continue through the school year. So we're actively finding time, whether it's during a staff meeting or formal conversations, informal, finding opportunities to tell parents the great news, but also ways that we're supporting students, whether it's with a tutor group or in class. We have Reading Lab 2 block that I think we often as educators say, like, they're getting it in Reading Lab 2, but families don't understand what that might look like. So providing more information, we give information in our learning launchpad each week in the newsletter. So we're trying to delve into that a little bit more this year. And then lastly, I had to put the building project on here. I can't even begin to tell you how many, the building is going to be fabulous. And I very confidently can say that when it opens, it's going to be spectacular. And I really feel like the architects and all of the companies and consultants we're working with are asking for stakeholder opinion. And I do want to thank you for the opportunity of me being involved, because I feel like I've learned a lot and I've got to work with a lot of different people that I might not always. So I just think we're really moving in the right direction, and it's going to be a great community space for everyone to use and to thrive in. It makes me excited for future building projects in Reading. Not right now, but down the road, not many years from now.
Maybe ones you don't have to lead next time. Yeah.
All right, I think that puts me at the end of the alphabet, and I will apologize for my raspy voice. I have caught the cold that is all through Wood End, so here we are. So in addition to all of the commonalities that have already been shared and that colleagues have spoken about, so I've kind of bucketed the 3 important things that I think Wood End's really going to be focused on this year. So as everyone knows, the SEL committee has created a district-wide SEL curriculum for all 5 elementary schools. So to kind of double down and engage our students in some additional SEL work and build those competencies. Our school adjustment counselor is leading bi-monthly, so at least twice a month, additional whole grade SEL instruction that will buddy up on whatever the lessons that were taught for that month, but also allow kids additional opportunities to play, which we've spent a lot of time this summer working on, and he's going to implement some zones of regulations, which is one of the curriculums that our school adjustment counselors and school psychologists use to build student capacity to manage emotions and recognize emotions and build strategies to navigate some of those big emotions that all people and our littlest people feel pretty often. So that's really exciting work. In addition to that, and kind of on the opposite cycle of the social emotional learning that I just talked about, we're really focused this year on building out our grade level data analysis and how it is that we use that data to improve our instruction. So being super intentional, looking at standards-based information. So we've worked really collaboratively with Lana Montero, one of our math coaches, and Erin Birchall is part of this process as well, to really look at like what are the priority standards and what are we going to do to match instruction to the priority standards by creating like standards trackers and all sorts of data analysis documents to help teachers build their instruction off of what not only our standards but also what students are showing in their performance. So that's exciting work. I know someone else here had spoken a little bit about instructional rounds, peer observations, and just like general walkthroughs. So we're doing that as a leadership team, but bringing that work into sort of the smaller either grade level communities and or people like Erin Birchall and Lana Montero are coming in, and we're doing it sort of more whole school so that teachers can get an opportunity to see each other teach, but also sort of just looking at like how do we provide structured feedback to teachers so that they can then improve their instruction in meaningful ways to kind of build student capacities. And then the last thing that's like super exciting is looking at special education. So this is the first year that Woodend has had a full-time team chair, and not only is it really exciting to have another administrator in the building to thought partner with around special ed and or just like general leadership type things, but it allows us an opportunity to provide sort of more regular coaching to our special education team. And this year, Woodend has a fairly new special education team, so that's exciting work, really allowing us to look at our reading instruction and the structured work that our teams are doing, ensuring that those curriculums are being implemented, looking at modifications, really looking at progress monitoring for IEPs, and really allowing us to build like strong family engagement too, having someone full-time there. So that's really exciting work. And as I just mentioned, we do have a fairly new special education team at Woodend, and the district has sort of partnered with us between program coordinators, our team chair, Dr. Stiles, Allison Wright, all the BCBAs, all the inclusion specialists to really provide a cohesive and what I think is so far has been a really comprehensive like mentoring group for that group of young educators to build their skills, but also allow us to provide quality specialized instruction to our students. So some really good work happening at Woodend, and I'm excited for the year.
You want to pause?
I do want to pause.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then
Yeah. Any questions for the team or Dr. Mostrzewski? I do have a couple questions.
Go for it. No.
Steve, you had the DIBELS target in your SIP. Do you know off the top of your head what the baseline is that we're working from there to get to that target?
73.
It's 73, okay. And then Nicole, the bi-monthly blocks, how are those going to be coordinated with lunch groups and mentoring and a lot of those other sort of SEL interventions that we're kind of already doing at Woodend?
Yeah, so it's kind of an addition or an enhancement from what we were doing in previous years. So last year we had piloted our specialist co-teaching, what we had called like an enrichment or an additional block of time. So we use our specialists to kind of create that schedule. So it alternates from our grade level data cycle, so the classroom teachers go to it, but it doesn't impact our lunch groups or anything like that. It actually allows him to, our hope is that we'll be building student capacity so that there may be fewer students who need additional social emotional learning because we're doing it whole group, but it doesn't impact lunch groups. We do them at the very end of the day. They're 30-minute blocks, and they were already built into a previous schedule because we were piloting that co-teaching model that our specialists were doing. So now instead of them teaching 4 times a month, our specialists, they're co-teaching twice a month. Mr. Lind is teaching the SEL blocks, and then our teachers attend that because it also allows them to implement the CASEL standards that they're learning and teaching with the SEL district-wide curriculum. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Tom has his hand up.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Sean. Caitlin, I think I heard you talking about writing at Joshua Eaton in particular. Are you leveraging any of the Writing Revolution materials that Dr. Hardy and others were working through last year? And can you talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Sure. So Writing Revolution has been a great tool. It's really integrated into like the framework of ARC, and it targets some of those more specific skills that we're seeing students are in need of. So pairing kind of that Writing Revolution with the ARC curriculum, kind of prompts, but really also looking at our intervention block is what we spent our all-day PD on just a couple of weeks ago, kind of saying like where are students kind of needing that extra support, and it's been really great to also have the Writing Revolution in that terms as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl, please.
Steve, I have a question for you. With, when you're talking about your attendance team, and I love that, and I love, like, even walking through the high school last winter when it was too cold outside, and I snuck in and just started walking in the hallways, up on the screen, up on the screen, it was talking about attendance, and I love that, and I love how you mentioned that. Can you talk about, like, what that team looks like for attendance?
Sure. Carla, also, if you're cold when you're walking the neighborhood, come to my office. It's about 9,000 degrees every day, okay? So do you mind if I write while I talk, so that'll help me, I'm a visual person, so if I'm kind of looking at names. So on our attendance team.
I don't need like names or anything,
Okay.
just like.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have a group of people, right, who get together. They have a variety of roles, right? So myself, my assistant principal, our adjustment counselor, our school psychologist, our nurse, some of the people that might have knowledge about why patterns are evolving with students. So the first thing we do is we identify the problems, right, or the patterns. We sit down and we look and we see, is this something that we need to reach out to the family about and have them in? Most of the time, that right away, right, that connection is going to help start to get a kid to school, because we can develop a plan that's specific to a kid and a family that they might be struggling with. Sometimes it's just about morning routines. Sometimes it's about something that's making the kid anxious. Sometimes it's a kid that lives far away and they're missing the bus, right? So we have to talk through those things and figure out a plan together. We've been really successful as a group forming partnerships with families, and you don't always see the improvement right away, right? Sometimes that takes a little bit of time, but over time we can really point to like individual kids and see them start to get to school more. And so that outreach by that team, I think that now the next step that we're doing by connecting the whole grade level into that team, because they might see patterns that we're not even seeing, right? Some global trends in their grade that we don't know, that we're not just picking up. So I think we're going to see even a stronger increase with this, but that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Take myself off mute, sorry. I just wanted to acknowledge, since I've been the one who's pushed on this quite a bit in the past, how I appreciate all of your cases, and even the ones that are coming up, how data-driven your analysis is, and how it's now integrated into the practice, right? Not only that, is it's much more integrated into your actual SIPs as well. When you look at the details behind the scenes, you guys buried the lead as you were talking through a lot of this stuff. You're very aggressively targeting some significant growth and achievement for a lot of our kids and a lot of our most at-risk kids when you go through the details behind the scenes. So I just want to continue to thank you for that and acknowledge the continued improvements in the overall process and preparation and distribution of this material. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great. Anyone else? All right, you're off the hook for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to the middle schools.
Where far? What's the middle point?
Probably close.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't see,
Can you see this one?
Here. I'm like, I need to see. Do you want to go here? No, that's fine, that's fine. Hello. Thank you for having us. So I'll get us started. We're just going to spend our first slide going over some commonalities, like the elementary school principals. Sarah and I work together. We also meet and have teaching and learning meetings once a month, twice a month. So we really have made efforts to align on the big topics, on the key themes. There are obviously distinctive things happening in each of the schools, but we identified these as our kind of key objectives under the strategic objectives. So for strategic objective 1, student engagement, this is a focus in both of our buildings and all the departments. Like what exactly are we doing to make sure that students are engaged in the learning, that they are active participants, they're not just receiving information. And so I think with technology and information being so accessible, the whole way that students have to learn has really shifted. And so how are we making sure that they are actually activated and engaged? And middle school is such a crucial time for maintaining levels of engagement, so that then when they get to high school, they understand sort of what that purpose is. So we'll talk more about that in a second. How can we improve our systems so that we are all working together to support students where they're at? In various tiers and identify what supports that they would need, whether they be targeted or more intensive supports. And how can we make sure that we have very supportive, responsive learning environments where students feel like they belong, where they feel like they're part of the community, particularly in pretty diverse buildings. Great. So for the second strategic objective, we are quite aligned, and you'll see that in our SIPs as well as what we share when we get to our school level slides, and it has been a pleasure working with Jill on all of these because it's nice for us to really feel like we have a partnership in these goals. So some of this might sound redundant when we get to our own slides, but then there are pieces of this that are very much unique. But we always want to hold students to high expectations and to help them achieve to their greatest potential, both achievement and growth. And that looks different for each individual student, so that's paired with the right amount of support and the right type of support. So that's why you also see their universal design for learning, because that is a focus area of both buildings. And really, we did that work this summer about Generation Alpha, and we're really trying to figure out what does meeting the needs of all of these learners look like this day and age. And that is where some of our professional development is also centered around meeting the unique needs of our students. And we're excited to use the new EduClimber data platform and get to know that. I mean, we're definitely in a learning curve on that, but it's going to provide us a wonderful opportunity to be more data informed in the middle level and to use that also with our SST process to really try to figure out what sort of supports and interventions students need. So that's our second strategic objective. And I think I have the next slide. So back under strategic objective 1 at Coolidge, you know, I'll say year after year, just the mantra of how sense of belonging goes hand in hand in academics and how everyone at Coolidge believes that wholeheartedly. So knowing that working on that in partnership with academics is key, kind of a 50-50 thing, because they both lift each other up. So that strong sense of belonging allows students to maximize their potential, and ideally, as a result, increase attendance, which is something Coolidge needs to work on, because the chronic absenteeism that we had, a goal that we had last year, we didn't meet. I mean, I'll say, and we are looking to do things, you can't keep doing the same things, so we're looking, what can we do a little bit differently? And we're excited for that work as well, but we're looking at some things, increasing community engagement through after-school activities and increased service projects, especially with our 8th graders, really in promoting leadership for them in the community, both the Coolidge community and beyond. Interest-based learning, including a passion project that we've created. We have 2 different versions of it, but the idea that if students are creating their own learning, they get excited to come to school to do that thing that they're excited about. And continued, I just want to give a shout out to our unified sports program, which we're developing. Not only the bocce just had their jamboree this week, which was amazing. We have a basketball program that started last spring, and we're starting a Best Buddies program this year as well at the middle school level. So that's really exciting for that belonging as well for all of our students. We know that our students need a lot of support right now with social, emotional development, with academic skills, emotional regulation skills. executive functioning skills, and just general academic skills and dispositions. And we're really looking at our sixth graders who are in that COVID bubble in kindergarten and first grade who really have more lagging skills than we've seen in a long time. So we're really trying to develop things to really support them academically as well as with their belonging and to help them build those skills. And that's happening in advisory. Our school adjustment counselors, which we're thrilled to have 2 in the building this year, are actually pushing into 6th grade classes to try to explicitly teach those skills. And we're trying to create specific plans about what we really need to focus on at each grade level and be really purposeful in all of those areas. So strategic objective 2, this is where we're going to have a lot of similarities. So I'm kind of speaking on the first bullet. Coolidge, we're really focusing on that Generation Alpha student and working closely with Jackie Pelusi, who's doing our foundational PD, which we have her scheduled for multiple times during the year, with really saying, who are these students in front of us? They're different than they have been in the past, and we can't just keep doing the same things we've been doing and expect the same results. And that is also going to include work on neurodiversity and executive functioning, which has been ongoing for us. And then ideally, teachers are going to be able to translate that into their own classrooms and departments. That hopefully will then result in achievement and growth goals, which we're working on. I mean, we're proud of our data from last year, but we definitely want to work with our students with disabilities and the data that they have. And we know that science also needs a little bump up, but we think the work we're doing in our departmental meetings with science are going to really help with that. They are doing the 3rd year of curriculum review, which is the second bullet here, related to kind of our curriculum work. They are in year 3, they're developing curriculum. They are doing kind of align units across the schools, and they're doing performance-based assessments tied to those units, so that's exciting work in science. We also have curriculum reviews in math and social studies just starting and getting underway. It's been great to pair with Dr. Hardy and her team on planning and executing that. And continued rollout of the Amplify ELA curriculum, which our ELA teachers, it's kind of fun in year 2 to see that creativity ramp up and the comfort level with it be there. So that's really great. And Jill.
This one's a commonality. Well,
Yeah,
they're all kind of commonalities.
Yeah, that second one is
there,
definitely a commonality. So I'm speaking for both of us.
Yeah, so I'll just take over and then I'll go to my slide. So we're really using the data. I think EduClimber is going to be a fantastic tool for tracking that more longitudinal data and also compiling different things like the attendance data and the iReady data and MCAS data. But we've really spent a lot of time looking at our spring MCAS, iReady, and MCAS and iReady data to form our more targeted interventions for the beginning of the year. Since we had our benchmark, our initial iReady in September, we're also now looking at math and reading as far as creating those groups for quarter 2. We'll then do mid-year in January, and so that will help inform those groupings for leading into when we'll be doing the MCAS. So it's really helpful because now teachers have gotten very used to utilizing the data, accessing the data, meeting in teams and in groups, and identifying who are the kids who just need a little bit more of that classroom level support that they can get during that project time, who are the kids who need more targeted support. And so we've really looked at kids within that 10-point window of meeting expectations, focused on them at the beginning of the year because it's really not too much to get them kind of into that bucket. And now we're starting to look at kids who had maybe were 20 points away from that. So really just getting teachers into the practice of in their teams, in their grade level groups, utilizing that data, and then tracking that data to see that progress. We can go to the next one. I'll just keep on objective 2 since I'm already started there. So Sarah talked about the curriculum reviews. I think the cool thing about some of these objectives is that teachers and having goals meetings where they're setting their goals for evaluation over the past few weeks, being able to frame this work at a district level and then a building level, and then for teachers to be focusing on, this is what I'm doing in my practice, so this is my focus at my department level. Student engagement is an area where a lot of departments are focusing on. What does that look like for English? What does that look like for math? and teachers are collaborating, talking about those things and saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm invested in some AI PD. I'm really interested in learning more about Generation Alpha, and then this course that I'm taking, this book that I'm reading, this is going to actually impact my practice, and then this is how I'm going to measure it in terms of my student learning goal that I'm creating. And so they're really seeing how all of those things are integrated and working together as opposed to being separate things. We're spending a lot of time really trying to strengthen our Tier 1 instruction at Parker. And so some UDL training, this is going to tie into my other strategic objective, teachers have incorporated UDL as part of professional practice goals. That also is something that you can capture in trying to measure student engagement. And so we're really focusing on what are we doing for all learners. I think because Parker has the highest percentage of ML students currently in the district, we have separate programs at Parker. Like, we really need to find ways to make sure that all students are engaged. We have such diverse learning needs. So those Tier 1 practices have to be really, really strong. Going to the strategic objective 1, we are in year 3 of participation in DESE's SEB Academy, which is the Social Emotional Behavioral Academy. We started this under Rochelle Rubino as a sense of belonging cohort. When I came in to the role, I had already convened a group of teachers as part of a behavior committee to look at what was happening with some of the student behaviors in the building. And so there was a PBIS cohort happening, and the SEB was like, hey, we'll put you in that one too. So we're initially in sense of belonging, and then we're able to jump in last year in PBIS, and they've integrated those together. All of this works together under MTSS in terms of the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. For all, more targeted and more intensive. So we're talking about that not only academically looking at that data, but also behaviorally. What do we need to do to make sure that students are meeting the behavior expectations? So one of the things we've been working on is refining our kind of rubric for behavior expectations. These are our school-wide expectations. This is what they look like in the classroom. This is what they look like in the cafeteria. Something new that we did in the cafeteria this year was introduce just like the scaffolds for kids at each table, as far as this is how we know your table is ready to essentially get dismissed to either go outside or go to class. And so we started the year with giving this laminated sheet, like my table is clean, my floor is swept, my trash is thrown away, and train teachers how to use that with students as well. Once the table was set, kids would get a laminated card. It had the table number. It's neon green, and then they would be able to like hold their card up that their table was ready. So it was a system that was really influenced by PBIS. This is what the expectation is that you need to meet, and it's really, I think, helped with create predictability and order within the cafeteria, particularly for our 6th graders who are coming in. We have 200 of them, so there's so many in that space, and they have a lot of energy, and they're really excited to socialize, and they really want to move, so it creates at least the structures in the cafeteria. And something else that we're really focused on in terms of that student engagement bucket is making sure that students have student-centered experiences. So looking at the MyCap, being able to use that grant funding to develop new classes, to help pay teachers to develop a new advisory curriculum that's also applying the recommended scope and sequence at the middle school level, just to provide more exposure to some of the opportunities are at RMHS or at tech schools, and so kids understand, like, this is why this matters now, because here are the things that you could be doing in this next stage.
A few questions. So one is, well, let me make one observation. I was sort of hoping there'd be a strategic objective here about eliminating 6-7 from their vocabulary, but
I think it's in the dictionary now. I think you lost that battle. I think it just made it in.
It was Merriam-Webster's like word of the year or something, right?
Sean, wait till your daughter comes home tomorrow and see if Coolidge eliminates it through our Halloween plans. We have a plan.
Going down tomorrow.
That's the goal.
All right, I'll send you a bouquet or something if you manage to succeed.
We're working on it.
Yeah. I wanted to echo the comment that Tom made. It's not necessarily reflected on the slides, but in the SIPs themselves, the amount of, like, the richness of usage of data and the sort of very, analytically driven goals that are in there are really encouraging. We've talked, it's probably one of the things in the district improvement plan that we've, maybe given feedback on, is we're seeing the foundation around data get built. I would say this is the first time we're going through this process that we sort of, or at least I'm sort of feeling it culturally, like this is how we're, running the district and driving our schools forward. And so, and Jill, you mentioned like teachers being more comfortable accessing and using data in their day-to-day practice as well. So really encouraging to see that sort of culturally kind of find its way into the SIPs here. And then I lost the other question. Maybe it'll come back to me. So anyone else? Laura.
I just want to say I'm really excited for both schools, and especially with this age group, that there's a strong focus emerging or continuing on the student-centered learning experiences. From my own experience teaching higher level kids, I know that those kinds of personal connections with material and with projects can really be transformative. So I was wondering if you could just say a little bit more about this passion project idea and a little bit more about the MyCap maybe, and just sort of how you're trying to optimize really allowing the students some flexibility in their learning so that they can accomplish the learning goals, but in ways that are sort of individually meaningful.
Yeah. So we have 2 8th grade teams, and right now one of our teams is working on the passion project in the fall, and the other one will do the spring. And so they have to pick something they're interested in. It's being facilitated by 2 teachers. And of course, those 2 teachers don't know all the answers to all the interests, but their goal is to help scaffold, well, how do you research something? A lot of the projects that the kids are choosing involve community engagement in some way, or needing to advocate for something or ask for help. So they're actually getting direct instruction on how to write an email to somebody or how to schedule a meeting with somebody, often within our building, but sometimes out of our building. How do you advocate for something? How do you, a lot of what they are trying to do is one group I'll use as an example wants to run a craft fair. Great, but so they had to write me an email to talk about how to organize that in the Coolidge space. We had a sit-down meeting. They had to come up with their proposal. And that's only like the early stages of their development. So then now they have to go keep working on it. It's kind of like that little improvement cycle, but in like very small steps where they're learning almost all just the skills of how to not just learn about something that they're interested in, but then how to take it to reality and realizing how complicated those things can be. But they're excited about it because then the ownership is there. So facilitation of great teachers who are really enthusiastic about it too, and are like, yes, go take risks. Yes, try that out. Yes, let me show you how to, let's talk about how to write an email and those kind of structures. So it's fun.
I can talk about the pathways a little bit. So 8th grade as well, we were looking at ways to try to make more offerings available. And so we changed things with the schedule in our offerings last year to introduce these pathways exploratory classes. And so in 6th and 7th grade, there was team time. So we now have called it Project Block, or PB, as the kids will call it. Everyone calls it now, PB, which operates similarly in 6th and 7th grade still, although in 6th grade, kids will do a world language exploratory to give them that exposure 1 quarter. It's a kind of an optional thing, but it's an opportunity. Some kids need more of that targeted support in math and reading during that time, so we have a lot of flexibility with how we're using that block. 8th grade, it's a similar thing, so kids might be in like ELA or math for a quarter with their teacher, or potentially that interventionist. They get assigned the project block to their gen ed teacher and then the group decides based on the data who they'll work with. But they also, even if they're in that, have this opportunity to do these pathways exploratory courses. So we started last year with 4. The idea was everyone would rotate through one a different quarter. As it turned out, when we were then having kids do some of these interventions, they may only get to do like 2 or 3 of them. So the way we did the course signups this year was I just had students, rising 8th graders, fill out a Google form and rank them. So like top choice down to 5. We added exploring art as a 5th pathway because there was a concern that previously when we had the electives, we had some art electives. We moved some stuff down to 6th grade, so there wasn't as much being offered in 8th grade. And so as a way to keep that as an option for kids who wanted to just take that art, we added a quarter pathways exploratory. And so there now are 5 options that kids can take. They can only take up to 4 of them, 1 a quarter. But I go through and Beth Simpson and I are the two that do all the scheduling, and we go through and we look at what the kids ranked. So started off with putting kids in their first or second option, and then I'm actually finalizing for quarter 2, which starts next week, their options for the second quarter, and pulling kids and putting them in some intervention groupings or putting them in their second choice. So it's a way to give kids more exposure to really the innovation pathways that they have at the high school. So we have clean energy, engineering, civic action, and public health, and then the new exploring art. And so the idea that when Katie Buckley comes and she's like throwing t-shirts into the audience, they have some familiarity with like really the really cool things that are happening at the high school. So
Well, I just wanted to give plaudits for incorporating that perspective directly into the curriculum, because I think that's really important.
Tom, go ahead.
Thank you. This might be more for Dr. Hardy or Dr. Melchewski, but in looking through the detailed data and refreshing it again on the MCAS pages, as well as the goals still lead to a gap that we've seen historically between Parker and Coolidge. So is there anything we can do to support Parker more, over the next, sorry, Sarah, but Coolidge is in relatively good shape, but what can we do to support Parker more to help close the gaps more aggressively? Or if we determine that this is where we're going to be, right? I'm hoping it's not the latter. So you did the presentation about almost a month ago now. Has there been any analysis to see if there's anything else we can do? Any budget adjustments, any resource surges, anything else we can do after school stuff? I know we just got the grant, but what else can we do to help Parker more?
I can jump in first, and I'll lead with a data point that I think I've shared during the MCAS presentation too. So in front of me, I have the Parker scores from dating back to, say, 2021. This is the percent proficiency in ELA, 59% in 21, 58% in 22, 53% in 23, 61% in 24, and 65% in 25. So that shows me that the needle is trending in a more positive direction. And I'll let Jill share in a minute, maybe what are some of those things that are happening in ELA that we think are maybe encouraging and starting to move the needle there, and maybe what are some of the spots where we can push more. Because I think, Jill, we're starting to see some things, so I think that I just want to make sure that's a context there. In math, go back to 2021, it was 42% proficiency. 2022, 52%. Back down to 43 in 23, and then up to 64% in 24, and then 59% in 25. So that 59% has the highest, except for last year, that it's been since 2019. So I don't think the narrative of and I'm not saying this is what you're saying, Tom, but I'm saying the narrative of there's not some things that are trending positive at Parker. I think that's important to note. And I agree. We want that to be able to match sort of what the trends of performance that we're seeing at Coolidge. So I think giving that context of Jill, I don't know if you can start by sharing, what do you think from like a building perspective of some of the pieces that are maybe working or leading to this, and maybe some spots where we can continue to push, and then we can pile on from the district level, maybe some additional supports, resources that we see as well.
I mean, I think definitely the curriculum department deserves a lot of credit for the growth. There was a lot of investment with the math coaches coming in and really leading PD with the math department 2 years ago, and actually spending time in classrooms teaching lessons for students, teaching lessons for teachers and modeling sort of some of the instructional strategies that they could be using. I think the opportunity for teachers to collaborate with each other, not just at their grade level, but across the department, is super important. And so I think the more that we build in those opportunities for ELA, similarly, being able to have Erin in the schools. We had Hill for Literacy coaching last year, which was a significant amount of time. And I think the teachers really benefited from that increased opportunity for collaboration, to be able to say, this is what I'm struggling with, where are you seeing struggles, but also to have people come into their classrooms and observe the curriculum and be able to give them in the moment feedback as far as how they could adjust and change that. So I know for me, one of the biggest challenges I have is being able to get into classrooms and give that feedback. So the ways, if we can find ways for, it doesn't have to be me necessarily, but to have those regular cycles of feedback for teachers and those opportunities for them to really collaborate beyond, I think, just that early release department meeting time. I just don't think it's enough. I think it's hard. These are hard things to figure out. But I think if you make that initial investment, as we've seen with things like looking at data to create intervention groups, it's a practice that becomes then embedded in the day-to-day routines. So I think that those are definitely things that we could focus on.
I have two thoughts from a district perspective too. Also just to give a shout out to Coolidge too. So Coolidge was 72% proficient in ELA this year and then 75% in math, which is near the top sort of, you look at middle schools across the state too. So there's some also really good practices happening at Coolidge that are shared amongst teams. And it's great that we have the strong relationship between Sarah and Jill constantly sharing practices between the schools as well. So I just want to say, we think there's some really encouraging things happening in district. To me, one of the biggest answers for us has been our now having EduClimber. Because looking at this one summative data point of 65% of kids are proficient in ELA is not enough to dig deeper in the root cause of what's happening. Where are the challenges by grade level, by classroom, by certain demographic groups? What are the supports that students are getting at those grade levels? What does our interventions and support look like? This will allow us to track students, to track sort of grade level performance, to track interventions that we're using for students and whether or not they're moving the needle. So I think finally having this tool will allow our district team to better continue to sort of see where we are, intervene more quickly, support more quickly, and think about where providing resources. I don't think the answer is just say, add an additional math interventionist. I think the answer is let's continue to look at the data that is, we have more consistently, we have that looks at it across different variables to be able to decide what is it that we need. And I think that's something we haven't had in the past. So honestly, our strategy has been throw more, and I just don't think throw more is as targeted or as supportive as we can be. So that's my quick thought.
I'll just add one thing, and Tom, I don't think this is exactly what you're looking for, but just to speak honestly to how we're sort of approaching this. One of the things we've talked about repeatedly, and at the school committee with the math pathways conversation, we've talked a lot about what math instruction looks like. And we've known for a while that our 7th and 8th grade curriculum that was put in place just wasn't really being leveraged. And we believe that is one of the problems that we're seeing in some of the differences between the schools, because we don't have alignment across the buildings as far as what the materials our teachers are using, and even perhaps some of the instructional practices that they're employing with our students. And so launching the curriculum review, we've already had multiple meetings. The middle school principals were generous enough to give us their math teachers to release them during a school day so that we could start. Whenever we run a curriculum review, a really big part, especially at the beginning, is professional development for our teachers. So getting on the same page as to what really high quality instructional materials look like. Tomorrow, I know when they're having their meeting, they're going to start looking at the Curate rubric, really delving into what it is that we want to have in front of our students. Also PD for the teachers around instructional practices. And so some of that work, even though it's happening for both schools, I do believe is going to be part of what we see where we start to see the gap closing. As Tom mentioned, those ELA scores, we start to see that Parker's continuing to have that upward success because now all of our middle school teachers are using the same curriculum. When they come together, they're able to have those conversations about student work. And then it's just easier for everyone who's supporting because we're all on the same page and we know what teachers are working with. So that's just one example. We're investing a significant amount of time this year in professional development and support for ELA curriculum and math. The supports really are happening across both schools, but I believe they're the things that we need to move the needle at Parker as well.
Yeah, just real quick, I appreciate all the answers. And Tom, your answer is at the top of the middle school number. I'm looking the next layer down, right? And in particular, the 8th grade, right before they go into high school, right? There are pretty significant differences in achievement between 8th grade at Parker and 8th grade at Coolidge, or at least what's projected in this number. So it's hard for me to tell if this is last year's 8th grade and we're going to go up from that, or if it's last year's 7th grade projected into 8th grade and going up from that. It says cohort, so I'm assuming it's the latter and not the former, right? So it's their performance as 7th graders and what we're hoping for as 8th graders. But I think that cohort in particular at Parker has pretty drastic differences. And I would hate to see that we're limiting their outcomes when they get to high school because we didn't invest now somewhat like we have this problem with the upcoming sixth graders, right? Where we have the upcoming sixth graders that were the COVID year kids that we have to invest in as well, I think. So that's where my ask is, yes, EduClimber is going to help. Yes, getting math properly taught in line with the curriculum will help, especially at certain school, right? But I think, is there anything else as we look at the smaller sets, and you're doing that with EduClimber, where we make sure that maybe we need the math coaches need to be spending a little bit more, maybe it's 60-40 of their time at Parker versus Coolidge, right? It could be something that simple, maybe that's overly simple, right? But if you think about it, we don't want to block that class off from longer term success as we look at where they are.
Those are all fair points. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I did remember my other question. I don't remember who made the comment, but there was a discussion about the sixth graders and the skills gap that they have coming in, being interrupted by COVID as kindergartners. The fifth grade, the incoming sixth graders for next year were, in preschool, and then were kindergartners when we came back in the fall of 2020. So can you talk a little bit about what are some of the specific sort of skills deficiencies that you're seeing in the current sixth graders? And I'm curious whether there's anything we're doing with the elementary schools to specifically address some of those things that are most sort of problematic when they arrive in middle school.
I think our work with Jackie Pelusi started with behavior and talking about things that are tied with executive functioning and the lack of attention span for this new generation. And I think that you can't just expect them to sit and attend and do school as we are used to. So we're noticing, we're seeing that in the classroom. I'd say kids are always moving, and you think you explain something once, and by the next moment they have forgotten. And so I feel like that kind of reinforcement of, I feel like we're just almost like having to retrain the adults on taking things a little bit more slowly, being a lot more explicit with directions, written, verbal, visual, we want to hold kids to high expectations, so I don't want to say that, but almost like having to slow down with teaching the skills of even what we would normally see as a sixth grader coming in would know how to organize a little bit, follow directions a little bit, and I think there's just a lot of not knowing how to do that yet. So almost treating them like a fifth grader or a fourth grader has kind of been the recommendation. Like, you have to think of that differently, and that takes some getting used to for the teachers and the staff in general. And academically, there's quite a range. I mean, we are using the fifth grade data and setting sixth grade targets, and they're lower than we've set in the past, but we're just trying to meet them where they're at, but also we say we really want to see this growth. And I think we do have some nice academic systems in place, but we're really looking at Coolidge. Like, we can't just keep doing the same things over that we've always done before for this cohort. Kind of to Tom's point, this is not going to help them with that growth that we want them to have. So we're really looking, using our leadership team, using some data that were more like behavioral data. What are we seeing in kids? What skills and dispositions are missing? And what are school-wide versus what do we really feel like we want to target and explicitly teach at each grade level? So, I'm sure the elementary teachers can relate to what, to that. Like, I think they're great kids. I don't want to say that by any way, shape, or means we love them. It's just when we want to move academics along really fast, you can't do that without trying to help them with those day-to-day skills. I don't know if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's the lagging executive functioning skills, organization, time management. They need a lot of positive reinforcement, a lot. I think we need to work on increasing their stamina for attention to task. I think that's very clear that's something that's not what it maybe historically has been for kids.
And they're new to grades, which they always have been, but it's almost like they're unfazed. But, we're about to end the first term, so we'll see what happens after first term. But, I got a 5 out of 10. Okay, good. Sounds, it is kind of like that urgency around their own academic success is something that's, I feel like we have to develop that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, I think you are also off the hook.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
This last one should be our quickest. Just say Jess Callahan is not able to join us tonight. As the community knows, Jess Callahan almost never misses a day of school. Unfortunately, she's dealing with a pretty significant family health issue. It's just keeping her family in our thoughts. She's been out for the week and will be back in next week too. So, but I did want to bring up what was her summary slide here and just bring attention to the community on what is the right-hand column, the measurements of success. So I think the high school has done a nice job articulating what they see as some of their quantifiable goals, listing reducing chronic absenteeism and increasing passing rate for grade 9 through better uses of an MTSS model. Increasing, building off the work last year with Barbara Bress, increasing the percentage of students who have the opportunity to engage in listening sessions from 15 to 25% as a way to utilize student voice to improve school, kind of school conditions, culture, opportunity. 3, continue to build on what was the highest passing rate in school history, moving that up to from 83% to 5% on AP exams, getting DESE approval for a 6th innovation career pathway, and you see some of the other metrics in there around increasing number of participants in our innovation career pathways and dual enrollment courses. And then also some of the pieces that maybe are not as quantifiable, but also just as important for the high school, determining sort of an action plan and leverage points for improving student, we'd say academic achievement, standardized testing data, particularly under SATs, which we know is a focus area. So we thought that takes a little bit more of a closer work through our data team to determine what are some of the challenges there, what are some of our areas for improvement. Continuing to update scope and sequence, aligning with district curriculum guides, and last but not least, approval of the 3-year NEASC report. Jess wanted me to emphasize too that she is constantly presenting to school committee, updating school committee on a lot of these different things throughout the year, but she's happy to come back in early December and present on any of these in more detail as well.
Great. Any discussion or questions? Right, go ahead.
Which brings us last slide. So just a huge thank you to our leaders today too. So I think everyone in this community at this point knows this is a group of extremely student-focused leaders who have a very high bar for what excellence looks like, and for leaders who are prioritizing school improvement when their jobs are constantly flooded by the day-to-day challenge and issues and things that just take up their time. I would just say we have an awesome group of principals, group of leaders. Thank you for all your leadership. Thank you for all your work. Tonight, I'm really encouraged and excited just to see how you've articulated the goals for your school, some lofty goals, but I think ones that are would be really impactful for our school communities. What's next? So our SIPs will be posted following school committee, hopefully approval, will be posted on each school's website. We will also then start the process of monitoring implementation. As you can see, there's some pretty quantifiable metrics. We feel like many times now we've talked about having the tool to be able to better assess how we're doing towards those goals throughout the year, hopefully reporting back to school committee. And then if you want more information on what's happening in any of our school communities, check out the dates, times, and in the packet Zoom link to be able to join what's happening, a deeper overview of each step.
Great. Any questions before we take a motion? Okay, let's do it.
Move to approve school improvement plans for all 8 schools.
Is there a second? Seconded by Sarah. We'll take a roll call vote. I'll start with Tom.
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Sean, yes. All right, thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to the Q1 financial update. I know Phil is on the line. Dr. Milczewski, Phil, I don't know who wants to start here.
Is it up? I can't see what.
I will pull it up momentarily.
Tom, are you good on charge there? Chris?
Yeah, I'm good. Chris, we're good on charge.
Oh, there it is. Okay, good. All right, this hopefully will be fairly quick because it's Q1 and that's the Q4 one. Why is it Q4? That's the wrong one. Sorry about that.
Let me see if I can pull that up. Phil, you can start, I'll pull it up here.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, for Q, again, it's the first quarter, so there's nothing much exciting to talk about. The first slide is for the general fund. General fund is tracking fine at this point. Once we get it up there, you can see it. There's just a couple of things I wanted to point out. Special education, you'll see the encumbrances are reflecting, for the most part, the out-of-district tuitions that we've encumbered for the entire year. There we go. That's the right one.
Sorry.
Here we go. Okay, so again, there's nothing really exciting going on. We are, at this point, again, for special education, you can see that the encumbrance is $4 million. That's a lot of our, for the out-of-district tuitions, as well as our annual contracts and things like that. General education, teachers don't start getting paid until September, so it's really only 1 month worth of salary in there, and that will be reflected every month from now to the end of the fiscal year. The other thing that popped out when I was looking at this was that facilities looked a little high in terms of overall usage, but its encumbrances this year compared to last year are higher than they were, so they've already encumbered a lot more than they had last year at this point. Overall, the budget should be fine, the general fund should be fine. You'll notice on here there are no, I don't want to say guesses or swag in terms of what we expect to be at year end at this point. I'm not expecting to be a whole lot left in the general fund when we get to year end, but we'll have a better sense of that once we get through Q2 and we've got all the salaries straightened out with all the new hires and all that, and then we'll give a much better update in terms of that. So, any questions on the general fund? If not, we go to the next one. So this is the update on grants. I do want to point out that our title grants, which are Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, the IDEA grants, those are actually all fiscal year 25 grants, even though they get spent in fiscal year 26. So all that funding is there, all that money is available for us to utilize near drawdown, so there's no concerns in terms of any of the funding for the federal entitlement grants. In terms of anything else, the Department of Public Health, that's our public health grant, so we have that again for this year. Tony, you want to talk about the genocide education grant? You talked about that far better than I could.
That would be me, actually. Yeah, we were really fortunate to receive a grant that is supporting work at our high school. And with that, we are looking at the spots in our high school social studies curriculum where genocide is included. If you may remember, there is a law in Massachusetts that genocide is to be part of the curriculum. And so this grant is to support that law. And so what we're doing is taking our scope and sequence, looking at where genocide is taught and any opportunities where it's kind of a missed portion to the scope and sequence. And then we have a team of teachers that's looking at how we teach genocide, the type of vocabulary we use, what we talk about the causes of genocide. And that we were ensuring that every time students learn about genocide, that they're going to hear common vocabulary. And that way they sort of build their knowledge over the 4 years that they're here. It also is providing significant funding for PD for teachers. So it's underway. The grant, unfortunately, was released very late. It was like as school was starting. We were expecting to hear about it in the spring. So some of the grant activities that we had put forth were supposed to happen over the summer. And now, that's not possible. So we are a little bit behind where we wanted to be. But we have a group of teachers underway and working on this. So more to come.
Dr. Hardy, is that required to be spent in FY26?
It is. We have to spend it by June 30th.
Okay.
Any other questions on the grants?
We have one in the audience here. Phil, if you could just bear with us a second.
Hi, Jeffrey Coram, Ridge Road. I was just a little curious. I started to look at like the first row there, from Metco, and I wonder if maybe some of the headings under FY25, the 4 subheadings, the first one is beginning FY26, then FY26 YTD.
No, the headings refer to the year of the grant. The subheadings refer to the year that we're in.
Ah, okay, thank you.
Okay. Phil, I think you're all set to keep moving.
All right. Revolving account, we go through here, in the memo, we did mention the fact that summer program was a little odd. Again, that's because a lot of the revenue for the summer programs comes in the spring, so since for the most part we're on a cash basis of accounting that got included in the numbers that were reported back in Q4. So that's why every year that looks a little odd. The one that I did want to spend just a little bit of time on is on the school lunch program. There's a couple of things going on there. Again, because we're on a cash basis of accounting, we are always lagging in terms of when we get the reimbursements from the federal government and the state for the school lunch program. So for example, if you look through Q1 for school lunch, all the money that was spent in September is being reported, but the revenue of the reimbursement that we're getting of, I think it's $267,000 is not in that quarter. So that accounts for the big chunk of the $298,000 deficit for the quarter that you're seeing there. Also, the beginning balance was a little low because we are still waiting for the state to finalize and pass the fiscal year 25 supplemental budget to close out fiscal year 25, because in that budget includes the funding to pay for the state's June portion of the school lunch program, which to us is about 96 or 86,000, I forget which number it was, but it's a significant amount of money that we're still waiting on. The last I heard, the Senate was still mucking around with it, so I'm hoping that that gets passed soon so that that money will come in. And then finally, in Q1, in terms of the numbers that you're seeing, we spent $96,000 on capital expenditures to put in new ovens in the schools, and so that also ties into the $298,000 deficit you're seeing. You'll also, when we get to Q2, we spent $92,000 to buy a new van for the school lunch program that originally had been on the town's capital plan, but because of the balance that we had in the school lunch program, we took it off the town capital plan, and we are utilizing some of the funds we have available in the school lunch program for that. In terms of, we just spent a lot of time talking about the school improvement programs, trying to make some improvements in some of our financial reporting and things as well. One of the things that we are doing starting this year is on the school lunch program. We actually have 3 programs now going on. We have the regular school lunch program, which covers lunch and breakfast. We also have a summer program that we really started to ramp up this past summer, and I believe that was discussed when Katie did her presentation a month or so ago. And then finally, we also have a small catering business that Food Services is doing. So we've established some new funds within Munis so that we report those results separately, because they need to be tracked separately. So going forward, we'll be starting to break that out. It will also allow us to better manage the 3 programs in terms of how well they're doing. That way, we can see on the school lunch program, whether we are properly staffed and things like that. So it's helpful for that. And I'm going to try to, and I am going to make changes going forward. So at least for this program, it gets reported not on a cash basis, but on an accrual basis, so that the revenue is showing up in the right quarter. So I don't have to sit here and explain a deficit every quarter from now until next July. So that's one of the changes we're doing there. And we're doing some other tweaks within the accounting, just trying to make things a little more user-friendly. Again, trying to make things user-friendly and do this is always a challenge.
So Phil, we do have the latitude to report revolving accounts on an accruals basis?
Do we? No, but I can do it on an Excel spreadsheet to get it to you folks.
I see what you're saying, okay.
Technically,
For the purposes of the state, it'll still be on a cash basis, yeah.
basis of accounting that we use is either a modified cash basis or a modified accrual basis. From my perspective as a CPA, it's a mush. So it makes it, especially if you talk about the general fund, the cash basis or the modified cash basis is pretty straightforward, because that money has to be utilized within that fiscal year. You talk about revolving accounts, it's really like running a business. And so we've got to be able to show that this is an ongoing business, what accounting period that we're talking about. So I'm going to be doing creating some stuff offline for Munis to be able to show, especially for food service, what it looks like on a corrected accrual basis, so that the revenue is showing in the proper period.
Okay.
Any other questions on the revolving accounts?
Keep rolling.
Gift and reserve, nothing much going on here. I know we've got some significant gifts that were accepted earlier this evening, but since we hadn't gotten them yet in Q1, they're not on here. They will be reflected in the Q2 report, and so we'll see those when we talk about Q2 in late January.
Phil, is it, hang on, question in the crowd on that one? The crowd of one.
Jeffrey Corum again. I was just, looking at the numbers here and wondered if you had any comment on the significant magnitude of difference between the different schools. The Barrows at 3,000 versus Killam at 44,000, or Parker at 10,000 versus Coolidge at 75,000. And, does the lack of donation balances impeding any of these schools from being able to do something that some of the other schools are? Or is there anything that the schools with the large donations should have been doing with this money rather than, letting it sit and accumulate a little bit of interest?
Those are questions I think that are more properly should be directed towards and or answered by either the principal or someone else who has better knowledge of what they're using those funds for. I mean, I don't have the institutional knowledge of how long they've been here. Let me rephrase that. I haven't yet finished going through and getting the institutional knowledge of all these accounts. We've been focused for the most part of the last year on revolving accounts. So I unfortunately can't give you an intelligent answer to those questions. So hopefully someone else can. If not, give me another 3 months and I'll be able to answer those questions for you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Levy.
Jeffrey, one comment I'll make is I do think it's all of the above. There's a couple of schools on here that I know are really worried about these accounts being so low and that, kind of impacting their ability to be able to support certain programming. I do know that. And I also know there is other schools on here that are looking for creative things that they could be doing that maybe they're not doing right now. So I think honestly it's on a school by school basis. I think there's some more work for us to be doing to make things a little more consistent on this. I think you're onto something.
Thanks.
I did want to point out just on the Special Education Reserve Fund, 1557 represents 1 month's interest. All that had been posted so far, but as I was putting this together was the July interest. Student activity accounts. I think we've talked about these quite a bit in the past. Where are we here? The high school tends to pull in some money here at the beginning. Parker pulled in a lot of money I had it in front of me and I forgot what it was for, some program that they're doing. So that is always, and I look back last year and the year before, that's always coming through early in the year in terms of what's going on over at the, excuse me, my mouth is now drying out on me, over at the Parker. Other than that, not much else going on in terms of the activity accounts. It's still early in the year.
Is this where something like Nature's Classroom would be reflected?
I'm sorry, what?
Phil, I'm thinking this is something where, something like Nature's Classroom, which are, large-scale trips that families pay for, would be reflected. That may be what that early.
I mean, the student activity account is supposed to be where we run the money through for activities that are for the benefit of the students. So, yes, if they go on a field trip, they raise the money for it, they bring their money in, and then we pay for the field trips. And so that's what these are reflecting. How they're able to build up balances, that's another question. That's a good question that I need to go back in and get a better sense of the history. So again, I can answer it more intelligently. So I'm going to add that to my 3-month promise.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the case of Nature's Classroom, they start collecting the money over the summer and the trip takes place in the fall, right? So
your answer is yes.
So you'd have, a quarter or two delta while that money sits in there. So that, I think that's probably the biggest contributor on Coolidge and Parker.
Yeah, correct. That is it.
Dr. Corum.
Yeah, and similar question about the differences in schools, but also I think in this one, like the high school balance that started at 140,000 for the beginning of the year, I mean, to some extent, I feel like the student activities are things that, should benefit the students that are, that are currently in, that are in the school at the time, and it should sort of tend towards zero by the end of the year, or for the beginning of the year, except for, a few of those field trips that start collecting beforehand. So, I guess, Phil, you've said you'll look into, how those balances got accumulated, but, should those have been spent on the students that already graduated? Or are there a lot of clubs, for example, at the high school that have accumulated some amount of money for this club or that club, and that just the number of clubs that have a little bit of money in them multiplied out by just the number of clubs gets you that large number?
Again, I'll dig into that. One of the difficulties with the student activity accounts is that the detail doesn't reside in Munis, it resides in QuickBooks. Next one. So this is just a list of the scholarships that are held in trust by the town, and the revenue is just the interest revenue being posted to each of the accounts. That's it.
Phil, in some of these cases on the scholarships, are there also ongoing funding from like the original donors in some of these cases as well?
I would say that's probably the case in some of the newer ones that got added, like the David Savio one.
Yeah.
The older ones, I'm going to punt to the superintendent and see if he has a better answer than I do.
I guess my question is not, is that what I see in the numbers? I guess my question is, I'm just validating in the case where, donors are continuing to make contributions to these funds, this is where we would see it, is in that revenue,
Yes.
in that revenue column.
If there are additional donations, you will see here under the revenue column.
Right, okay.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, I probably wasn't super clear. Okay, any further questions for Phil?
So overall, we're in good shape through Q1.
Great. Thank you very much. I think we're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a couple more items here. So budget priorities discussion, probably, I don't know, famous last words to say, I expect this to be a quick one. But, I think everybody knows sort of the situation we're in going into FY27 in terms of the budget. And, Tom alluded to having to, sort of petition FinCom to be relatively generous with the use of free cash to support a 3% budget, which essentially allows us to maintain level services. So as we sit here today, I don't think we anticipate a lot of room for net new in next year's budget, but I did want to at least open up the floor for the committee to highlight any priorities, just so you want to get on the table for consideration. Should things change somehow? Should we find opportunities, during the year to invest in things that maybe we don't anticipate being able to invest in as we sit here today? Or even just to be on our radar for, future planning cycles as well. If there's anything in particular that folks want to raise, we'll spend a couple minutes here. But again, anticipating level services, so probably not a lengthy conversation. Tom?
I thought it was going to be me.
Because you came off mute. Everybody else has kept themselves, physically on mute over here, so.
I just want to acknowledge, I think, a few things here, right? One is district leadership-wise, there's been a lot of creativity being done to try to make that budget work overall. Even with what we've asked the FinCom for, I think Dr. M mentioned it's about an $800,000 gap or hole that we're working to fill in the creative ways in which that's happening. Two, I think as we look through this, my perspective is we have to prioritize the classrooms as much as possible. And so that might mean we have to be a little bit more creative with some other things on the outside, or think about how we charge for other things on the outside or something else like that. But the core mission is education in the classroom. So if you think about it from that perspective, it's where you start and then everything else. So if it's not in the core, then it's something to talk about. I would also, I think Dr. and I talked a little bit about, let's make sure we're aligning and right sizing things where we have, potential challenges or whatever else that's necessary there. Easier said than done, and I'm not speaking to a specific area per se, but sometimes we're going to have to be a little bit creative about what we do and how we do it. And I think we didn't really mention it too much, but with the there's a little bit of a concern about, the lack of a Metco carryover and the lack of the Metco program growth, not from a people perspective, but the finances coming out of the state in that. And so we have to think about how can we be really, we want to keep the population and we want to keep them moving forward, but how can we are we doing it the most effective way? Hopefully we are, right? But everything should be looked at. Same thing with adjustment counselors and other things like that we've had at various different levels. We know that our population needs those. So, but are we as effective and efficient as we can, right? Easier said than done. None of these are going to be easy conversations. So everything I'm saying is sort of a risky statement to a degree. In 27, hopefully we'll be fine. I think it's going to be a much harder conversation at 28 unless we have some other things going on around the town. And I think the financial way in which we've been managing overall sets us up relatively well. But I just want to acknowledge that there might have to be some creativity, even in the 27 budget, even more so than it's already been done, as the team looks at this and looks at staffing and where things are. So, I don't know if that answers the question, Sean, or not, but.
Wasn't really a question, more just an open forum, but agree with everything you just said. Anything else? All right, that's officially the shortest budget priorities discussion we've ever had, so, great. Maybe at least since the 2017, 2018 timeframe. I don't recall those budget discussions, but they were probably fairly similar, I would imagine. All right, let's move to the October 1st enrollment update. Dr. Milczewski, Dr. Hardy, I don't know who's taking
Great.
this.
I'll take this. So in your packet, you should see a copy of the enrollment report, or the numbers of the enrollment report that was submitted to DESE based off October 1st enrollment. I just want to flag 3 pieces of data that I think are interesting, and then open up to any questions or thoughts from the committee and the community. One being, we are up 20 students from overall enrollment from last year. 2, we are about 60 students you see down here off of our projection of where we thought we were going to be at this point. The reason being 57 of those students in that projection are in RISE and kindergarten. The reason being is, we have 120 students projected for RISE. We only currently had 99. We know that number is going to continue to rise based off of age eligibility matriculation during the year. 2, we also during the spring talked about how we, in the spring kindergarten projections, had captured students who we knew were going to be waiting a year to enroll in kindergarten, students who we found out there who weren't included in the census. Those two groups were 27 total students. So therefore, we kind of boosted up our census number, which is 313, plus the 27 gave us a projection of 340, which we knew was high. We did come in lower. We're at 304. So just want to say that our projections weren't far off, sort of, when you look at the entirety of the rest of K to 12. 3, it's like the number that I want to dive deeper into, and I'll share this publicly, and I'll do some more work on this, is this number 8th to 9th grade transition. So the way we projected 9th grade was we just rolled up the number from 8th grade. Now, I'm interested, to say sort of what's happening historically. We've had somewhere in the range of a 12, 13% attrition rate from 8th to 9th grade. We're interested to figure out sort of when we dive deeper into these numbers, is that sort of still where we are? And also, what are maybe some of the trends that are, leading to attrition or actually, encouraging our kids to stay in district? So I think that's a trend that you'll be hearing more from us on in the future, because I think we want to better understand sort of what's been happening historically and how are we doing, are we making any progress there as well? And on that, it's not a clean comparison to look at 8th to 9th, because as you know, there's some kids coming in and out through school choice. So we have to go student by student and figure out what does the actual attrition rate look like besides just the 8th to 9th grade population change. Other than that, open up to questions or thoughts.
Tom, I see you off mute.
Dr. M, I think the same analysis should be done from 5th to 6th.
Yeah.
Right, and it's the same reason likely, it's the private school
Yeah.
exits, but the understanding of the whys and the hows and what else can we do to foster keeping them here. Almost the same exact analysis.
Agreed. Thank you, Tom.
Right, anything else on this? Okay. So we move to our last item, which is policy IKFE, Tom, I'll take a run at sort of setting all the context for this, and you can fill in any gaps. You all may recall, I think, our last meeting in late September, I think we had in the packet a policy that had been drafted by maybe Dr. Hardy and Principal Callanan, which was a revision to the competency determination, which was necessitated essentially by the MCAS ballot initiative. And so we determined, as a group to run this through the policy subcommittee. Policy subcommittee has now reviewed, made some edits, and has a proposed version for us to take for a first reading this evening. There's a sort of corollary policy, which is the IKF, which is graduation requirements, which we'll also need to review, revise, adopt. But it sort of refers to competency determination. So I think the order of operations here, the idea was, let's work this one through first, and then we'll adjust the graduation requirements policy, or adopt the new graduation requirements policy, which refers to this one as well. So, Tom, Dr. Milczewski, did I kind of set the right sort of grounding?
Absolutely. I would add a few things there, that the basic policy is from the basic MASC foundation that was published in August, and Dr. Hardy and Principal Callahan had amended it and adjusted it to meet our particular needs. We then went through some review in the policy subcommittee last Friday morning. The red lines and the highlights are from that conversation. So we took the version that Dr. Hardy had sent over and adjusted it from there. So some of it is just the standard stuff I do with Grammarly, but a lot of it is the discussion points we had. Quickly, we talked a little bit about mastery and what does mastery mean in particular. Some of the notes you came through in the packet, but it's up here a little bit more. I particularly had a problem with 60% as mastery, but in the conversation with Principal Callahan and Dr. Hardy, Dr. M, essentially I learned, which I didn't know, that needs improvement, needs the qualification of some of these things at the MCAS level. And this, it would be administratively burdensome to change this number as it stands right now. We can talk about it at some point in time in the future. As it stands, we did not change it from the 60% number. It is a little bit of a stretch right now that even we might get away with 4. Principal Callahan shared that the standard that they were shared with did not have those 4s in them. So it was more of a complete set of things. But our edits included, not our edits, but the overall administrative edits included the words 4. We talked a little bit about the pass-fail basis conversation, and that is mostly there for any transfer credit related cases. We do not have any pass-fail cases really within our cases for the core subjects that fit within this policy. Dr. Hardy, keep me honest, if there might be one exception in case a student is really, maybe medically challenged or something like that for the semester, or something else along those lines, where we can make an assessment that they fundamentally passed material. So there's a few other carve-outs that might go in there. This was also in our review. We wanted to make sure that in the math-related section, that the Algebra 1 related stuff, and in one case this year, the Geometry 1 related stuff that is taken in middle school would qualify for the competency determination. So we added that particular clause into the stuff that's going through it. We also had to compare and align the additional considerations against essentially a DESE rubric. We did have a little bit of some competing demands apparently from what DESE wrote in the rubric and what they're saying in some of the principal forums. So we might come back to the drawing board on this, but for now we're aligning to what their rubric is, and in particular it's this additional section on use of MCAS in limited circumstances. That section is part of the rubric, but is something we're hearing some conflicting demands as it stands across the administrative forums. And Dr. Hardy, again, jump in and keep me honest if I'm misstating anything.
You got it right.
So it's there for now. Finally, we removed the student handbook because we didn't want circular references. The student handbook should always refer to policy, not policy in the student handbook. So we removed that and cleaned up a few of the other references appropriately. And we did vote 2-0, Mayor and I, on Friday morning as is. So the Sean in case there's any other questions.
Thanks, Tom. All right, procedurally, let's, we have to start, well, we have to do the reading. Oh, yeah, you know, it's the start, yeah, go ahead. So Carla will start by reading the policy, and hopefully somebody will let her off the hook.
Competency
All right, I
determination.
move to waive the reading. Is there a second? Sarah will second. We'll take a roll call. Tom?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Sean, yes. Okay, why don't we go to the motion, and then we'll have any further
Can I
discussion.
just a clarifying question
Sure.
very quickly? So as this is written, it is possible for a student to demonstrate mastery as long as they pass the final for the course, even if they do not have a passing grade for the course as a whole?
Correct.
Okay,
That is correct.
interesting, okay.
But we can come back to that after.
But-
We can come back to that after let's take the motion, and then let's have a discussion.
Move to adopt policy IKFE, competency determination.
So let's actually, could I amend that to move to accept the first reading of policy IKFE?
Seconded as amended.
Okay. So Tom's seconding the amendment, so let's, actually,
Just take it as a friendly
yeah,
amendment.
can you take it as a friendly
Yes.
amendment? We're accepting the first reading? Okay, great. All right, let's not vote yet. We have a second from Tom as amended, so we're good. All right, so discussion. So Laura, you brought up that point about the oars there. Tom, I have a question, you know, how you thought about this. At the bottom of that first page where there's a strike through for some, and we changed it to limited, and then you gave a couple of the examples, you know, transfer or, you know, student with a medical situation. You know, I don't think some and limited, I get that limited sort of implies it's an exception, you know, versus maybe something that is semi-routine. But in the absence of any guidelines here, I'm not sure it functionally has any difference. I wonder if we would consider, you know, maybe in advance of a second reading, would we want to provide some of the examples, and they wouldn't necessarily have to be exhaustive, but some of the examples so that, again, you know, people who are not sitting here at the table today sort of understand what was intended with this policy. Some of the examples of situations that would sort of, you know, qualify for this clause.
I suppose we could, and like the two examples we just outlined could be added for sure. I think we always have to run that challenge when you run examples that you start to have some people think it's restrictive to that. Or, you know, a given in all situations, right? In the case of like a medical, like, okay, well, I was out for a week, so you're gonna have to give me a pass-fail grade. Oh, well, you know, how do you bind that in either direction, right, appropriately? So we could certainly add something, or try to add something for the second reading. It will have not been voted on, so we have to just take it as a body, or we can even try to wordsmith it now and then agree to that for the second reading if that's something you want to do, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I think your point's a good one. You know, what I was thinking was something like, we could say examples may include, and then give a couple of those, you know, those types of examples. And I think we'd want to say, and maybe this is covered elsewhere in the policy here, but who has the authority to make that determination? You know, whether that sort of exception is going to be granted. I think we'd want to capture that here as well.
Or whether it requires a formal request of some kind, rather than just sort of a blanket, you know, so that it can be considered on an individual basis rather than.
Yeah. Yep,
Can I
Dr.
ask
Hardy.
a clarifying question / interject? When we were writing this section, at least the way the question came through from Desi, it didn't appear that this was a policy creating answer, but instead a reporting out of our procedures at the high school. Because what we're describing there is based on like our policies, like how the high school, the procedures of the high school, what is to happen for a student to be considered to have satisfactorily completed coursework and earned full credit. And that, I believe, Principal Callahan pulled from our student handbook. So it wasn't like this is creating that policy, at least the way I'm reading it. This was more of like reporting out so that it's all in one place. Because if you're saying, that the student has to have passed. This is one of the things that Desi said. You have to like explain your grading requirements for satisfactory completion of coursework.
That's a fair point.
That said, policy trumps handbooks, so we could adjust if we so decided, and then the handbook would be adjusted reflectively therefrom.
Yeah, but I think Dr. Hardy's point is a good one, that which is that this is not intended to establish a policy. It's literally just to explain to Desi what are, how we determine whether a student has satisfactorily completed coursework and earned full credit. So it doesn't, it shouldn't be read to have the effect of creating some opportunity to get credit that doesn't already exist within the district.
I would agree with that.
Okay. All right, I retract my suggestion then. Thank you. It's helpful. Do you want to discuss the 60%?
All the ors are troublesome to me. I think that the idea that a student could demonstrate mastery by passing one exam at the end of the semester or at the end of the year, without having maintained a passing grade throughout, that strikes me as a big loophole. I think I would personally be much more comfortable if that first or was an and then make the or where, it could either be on the final exam, you get a 60% or higher, or on some kind of capstone or portfolio project. So I don't necessarily think they all need to be ands, but I feel like those first two should be.
So taken together with the next paragraph, I think this is how I'm rationalizing it in my head, because I think it's both, right? They have to demonstrate proficiency or mastery and satisfactory complete coursework and earn the credit. Both of those things have to be, both of those criteria have to be met. So take this scenario we just talked about, where you've got a student who had a significant medical situation. We opted to allow them to be graded on a pass-fail basis. They would get credit for the course on having been graded on a pass-fail basis, and they would have had to demonstrate mastery by one of the things up above. So in that case, that could have been passing the final assessment. It's conceivable they might not have had a final grade of 60% or above because there was coursework they weren't able to complete during the course of the semester. But they did pass the final assessment, which ostensibly is based on the entirety of the course's content. And they were granted a pass on a pass-fail basis because of the medical incident, for instance.
Okay, and that makes sense, but I would say that if we're saying that those are very limited cases, I feel like setting the precedent for everybody that you can clear the bar just by clearing the final exam.
Well, but if you're not granted that pass-fail basis, then you also have to meet the first bullet in the bottom in the bottom section, right? So you also have to satisfactorily complete coursework, which means you're earning full credit by achieving a passing grade in the course.
Okay.
Am I reading that correctly?
I believe so.
That is correct. Yeah, there's two sections. There's mastery and there's satisfactory completion.
Yeah, they have to do
You have
both.
to satisfy both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Also, just to interject too, this is replacing MCAS, which was also independent from their grade in, their English course. They could pass MCAS and fail their English course, which hopefully wouldn't happen. And then the final piece to sort of keep in mind, this is one element of the expectation for students, but they are still, in order to graduate, have to successfully pass those courses.
I retract my criticism.
I appreciate it, but, I think we as well talk about this and wanting to set a high bar for our students. But the ORs here is just an opportunity. We also don't want, to exclude students in a case where they would have passed, under the previous assessment, and just to give as many options as possible to pass.
That's where I was going initially, or I was 60%, I want 70%.
Yeah.
Like, no, Tom, you can't do that.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
Sarah?
I think the other thing that kind of jumped out to me in this section particularly, we're using proficiency and mastery kind of interchangeably of how I'm reading this, which are two separate things in my mind. So if you think about the MCAS context being proficient, you could still be in that partially meeting category and be proficient, which is kind of where the 60% thing comes in, versus somebody who's really mastered a subject or a topic. And I think those are, so just being clear in our language about what do we mean by this. And in my mind, this is about proficiency and not mastery.
It's a technicality of the wording that is required. We have to talk about the mastery requirement, and we have to talk about satisfactory completing. And to Sarah's point, proficiency is just part of it from the way the whole thing ties together. Mastery was the word I was stuck on, Sarah, as well. That to me is a much higher bar than just proficiency, but that's the way the law was written, which is an interesting problem, as it is. So theoretically, one could argue the law is harder now than MCAS was if we were to implement it to a mastery degree, right?
Yep.
Which I think we all would agree that the people who were fighting against MCAS as a graduation requirement were not trying to raise the bar, per se, from an intent perspective.
Yeah, you could also argue we're almost using competency interchangeably as well, but again, to everyone's point, this is sort of the quagmire that we are left with here. Okay. Great, anything else for the first reading? This will come back around, so if folks, reflect on it and want to talk about it more next time around, maybe we'll let Carla read it in full next time, and then, and then, and then we'll have another discussion. All right, so we have a motion on the table to accept the first reading. If there are no other comments, we will move to the vote. I'll start with Tom.
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Sean, yes. If I'm not mistaken, that is the end of our agenda. So is there a final motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Laura. Tom?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And Sean, yes. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.